According to some of our most recent data on our pensions, millennials, so that's people aged between 25 and 40, only have this much saved up in their pension pots. On the low end, £9,300, and on the high end, £30,000 if they're lucky. Many of them right now think that they'll almost never be able to fully retire, and they'll have to at least continue working almost indefinitely to make sure they don't run out of money. So is the dream of retirement, stopping work altogether and enjoying life, now just a pipe dream for many of us, or have we got this whole thing wrong? What's so different for this generation of people that means we might end up having to never retire and having to work forever? Well, that's what I'm going to cover in today's video, but also, it's not all doom and gloom. There are things you can do today which might just take years off your working life, but let's first take a look at what's going on. Okay, so some of the figures look pretty scary at the moment when you see what most people have saved up for their pension, and the fact that many people have no idea how their pension even works. So let's just start with the end goal and work back from there. Now, if you're wondering how much you might need in retirement, the Pensions and Lifetime Savings Association have put together annual amounts of money that you'll need depending on the kind of lifestyle that you might want to enjoy. And they've also broken them down into single people and couples. So this should give us a good starting point. If I bring this up on screen now, here you'll see the latest figures they have. And just bear in mind that these amounts of money are for people who are retired today. And we'll touch on what we might need in the future in just a second. Anyway, here's how they break things down for these different groups. So for example, if we look here in the middle section, what they call a moderate standard of living, then you'll get £127 a week for food, a 3-year-old car that gets replaced every decade, as well as 2 weeks for a European holiday each year. Now just bear in mind that these figures are for a couple. If you want the numbers for a single person, go on their website and you can flick through and change them. So that's £34,000 a year as a couple, which for some perspective is just slightly above the median average UK full-time salary of £32k per year, but split between two people obviously. Now, if you want a slightly more extravagant retirement, then you'll be needing to look here at this column, which they call comfortable. And the amount of cash you'll need here for this year is at least £54,500. Again, for some perspective, if you saw one of my last videos, you'll know that this amount of money is almost what you need to make you in the top 10% earner in the UK when you're working. So in retirement, between two people, this might be a bit of a challenge. For that additional cash, you're getting a new kitchen and bathroom every 10 to 15 years, lots more money on food at home and eating out, 2 cars, and also 3 weeks in Europe every year. Oh, and there's also money left to spend on birthday presents, although not quite enough to buy Apple's new virtual reality headset just yet. You'll have to sacrifice the second car for that. Okay, so that's a lot of money today, but just for reference, if we try and work out what we might need in 25 years or so, if we take that moderate amount of money, £23,300, and we grow that in line with inflation, let's say 3% a year, because I think that's probably more realistic, we end up with £49,276. It's almost 50k a year between two people in retirement. This feels a very, very long way off. So what's causing the issue at the moment? One of the biggest concerns that millennials speak about comes down to the current costs of living, and this is not just a problem here in the UK. Let's take housing as a good example, which is usually the largest cost most people have in their outgoing. We all know how much house prices have gone up over the past few decades, but that information on its own doesn't tell you the whole story. The biggest thing we have to look at all comes down to affordability. That's how much of your income you're actually spending. So for example, if 30 years ago most people were paying 20% of their income on rent or a mortgage, and now that number was more like 30%, that would mean that people would be 10 percentage points worse off, so they'd have less money to spend on other things. Here's the latest data we have from Nationwide showing us at least some of this story playing out. So here's what first-time buyers are now spending on houses as a ratio to their income. Now this data goes back all the way to 1986, where we can see that back then, people were spending about 3 times their income on a house. Fast forward a few decades as the millennials grew up in these houses and finally want to get out of the nest, we're now at some of the highest levels we've ever seen at more than 5.5 times earnings across the UK. One thing you'll also notice is that we're at an even higher level than we saw before the global financial crash of 2008, when everyone was buying at whatever the cost as money was flowing as easy as water. Sticking with the housing market just for a bit longer, there are a couple of other trends which are interesting to follow. Firstly, let's take a look at the average age for first-time buyers over the years. As you can see, it's been slowly creeping upwards, and if you look at the line here which excludes London, we can see that it's gone from around the age of 30 to 33 in less than 2 decades, which is no real surprise after seeing how much things cost. What this then means is that people are carrying more debt and for longer periods of time, which then pushes away that retirement dream further and further away. Also, this trend I don't think is going to stop anytime soon, with a lot more talk now about the return of the 100% mortgage and lenders seemingly happy to hand out a lot more cash to buyers. It's all fine and good if house prices just keep going up, but then we all know how that ended last time. Another reason why things have been harder for people to save any money for a pension or into any kinds of investments has also been the fact that real wage growth has seen quite a fall here in the UK. As a reminder, real wage growth is calculated by taking what you get paid and then adjusting that for inflation over the weeks and years. Now, this is really important because although you might have received a pay rise many times throughout your career, if inflation was higher than the rise, then you've actually been paid less and less and less. Now, here's what the data looks like across the last couple of decades. Now, as you can see, every time these lines are a kind of beige colour, your earnings have actually gone down on average. Since millennials came into the job market around the financial crisis, you can see there's been lots of times that earnings in the UK have fallen in real terms. And all this means is that there's less money that gets saved and invested, as most of that income is being spent on housing, the cost of living, and let's not even forget about the dreaded student loans as well. Most recently, as you can see with the current cost of living crisis and high levels of inflation, wages in the UK are losing their buying power, falling nearly 5% a year. And just remember that these numbers can compound too. So let's say if one year you lose 10% of your buying power due to inflation, and the next year you get a 10% pay rise, well, this doesn't get you back to level. 100 dropping to 10% goes to 90, but then if you increase 90 by 10%, you only get to 99. So to get back to level, you'd actually need 11.1%. In the same way as you might look at your stock market portfolio, see a stock that's been cut in half, you'd actually need 100% gain to get back to the same level. Never fun to see. Okay, so there's plenty of doom and gloom out there, and we're never going to retire, and we're going to be chained to our desk until we keel over and die. But wait, there is hope. At least I think so anyway. You see, I think the idea of retirement in the traditional sense is very old-fashioned. The idea that you work a set number of years until a certain age and then all of a sudden you just stop working, get paid a pension and that's it, feels a bit weird. I think the world of work has changed massively, and not to mention the fact that people are living longer and healthier lives also has to come into play. I mean, just check how much life expectancy has improved over time. As you can see here, over the past 250 years or so, we've gone from an estimated life of under 40 to more than 80 years old. And even if you take the last 100 years since 1925, life expectancy has improved by almost 50%. So because people are living much longer, the whole idea that you retire at 65 and then you have 20 years or more of just doing nothing seems very weird to me. And for many people, even with a lot of money, I can see how you could get very bored very quickly. Let's not also forget that the world of work has changed dramatically. We've moved from the kinds of jobs that we've usually done, from those needing lots more physical labour, to knowledge work, often behind desks and sat down and doing stuff like this and making YouTube videos. Now, as you can see in this chart from the ONS, from the 1970s onwards, you can see this shift as we've moved more and more into that services-based economy, meaning that we're making less and less in the manufacturing fields as that work's been moved abroad. Now, what this means, and the point I wanted to make, is that once you get to the age of traditional retirement, if you want to just call that 65, you're no longer completely worn out and exhausted, and actually, I think you can contribute a lot more to society if you want to. And that, I think, is the really key point. As I said at the start, us millennials are an interesting bunch. We expect to be able to retire early, but then we also expect we might have to work as well. According to Evelyn Partners on this TrustNet article, you can see here how different age groups have different expectations when they want to retire. Zooming in on the millennial group, they expect to retire at around 60 to 61 years old, which seems pretty ambitious if you ask me. Now compare that with the older groups like baby boomers, and you can see how eager we are to retire. But then, on the other hand, when asked about our expectations, this survey carried out by CNBC showed really interesting results. They asked 1,000 adults aged between 33 and 40 if they expected to have to work into retirement, whether that be a second job or a part-time one. The responses were over 60% of people saying that yes, they did expect to have to pick up some work, and only a quarter expected that they wouldn't have to do anything at all. And I know this is based in the US, but you can find similar comments in the UK too. Now, who can blame them? It makes a lot of sense to me that you might want to work on your terms when you get to retirement. After all, the state pension right now is just £203.85 per week, or £10,600 per year, which is not going to get you very far if that's your sole source of income. If you've got years of experience in a certain sector that you might want to share or give something back in a lower paid role, then why not carry on working and top up your state pension and any other income that you have with a part-time job? The key thing for me at least would be doing it on your own terms and to be happy doing it. We definitely don't want to be pulling any all-nighters or 60-hour work weeks, that's for sure. But what if you really don't want to work at all or have the ultimate choice and freedom in retirement? Well, I did say at the start that I'd at least share some tips to help getting yourself started, and one of the first things to understanding is what the hell your pension is in the first place. So forget the state pension first off. Let's assume you work enough years to qualify for that, which right now says that you need 35 qualifying years. We've got no idea if that will still be around when we retire, so let's just focus instead and what we can control. The biggest thing most people are missing, in my opinion, is having no idea how their pension actually works. Now, whether you work for the public sector or for a private company, you'll get an automatic enrolment into a company's pension scheme. At minimum, this should be 3% of what you earn paid by your employer, with you being able to top up an additional 5%, bringing you a total of 8% per year. Also bear in mind that you'll get tax relief on that money, and potentially you can pay it before tax too, but I'll leave that to you to find out about, as that really will depend on your own scheme. Making the most of this seems like a no-brainer to me, as it really is free money, and then over the long period of time, as long as that money's invested in a sensible set of investments, which you really hope it was, you really could be sitting on a really nice nest egg. In the public sector, you might even find yourself sat on some better pension scheme like a defined benefit one. So take advantage of that and try and contribute as much as you can. If you don't know how it all works, just ask someone at work and find out. I saw an article while researching this video that explained how someone opted out of their pension scheme because they just had no idea how it all worked and never realised what the benefits were or how any of this works. And I bet there are loads of people out there like this. Secondly though, and a subject that I like to talk quite a lot about on this channel, don't forget to invest your money yourself. You can open up a separate private pension if you want, it's called a SIP, and then don't forget to use your ISA allowances too, especially your stocks and shares ISA, to really grow your money over that long time period by just consistently putting money in each and every month, each and every time you get paid. Remember that even very small amounts of money will really add up over time, and the more you have saved up, just the more choices you'll have when it comes to retirement, or whatever you want to call it. Personally for me, I'm along the lines of thinking that retirement is quite an old-fashioned concept, and I can easily see myself always doing something, maybe even doing more YouTube videos, but I'd like that something to be on my own terms and during time when I want to do it. And the only way I can see that working is having the financial freedom in the first place to be able to make those decisions. So if I have to work because I can't afford my bills, then clearly at that point it doesn't become a choice anymore, and then I can easily see work becoming a really horrible thing that you don't want to do. But touch wood, things are going in the right direction. Anyway, I'd love to know in the comment section what you think about this topic. Is retirement a dead concept to you, or are you adamant that when you reach a certain age, that's you done and you're never going to work another day in your life? Anyway, I'll leave the next video up to the magical YouTube algorithm. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next video. As always, happy investing.